Welcome, gentlemen of the press, to this press conference. It's on the presidential intervention to address key concerns of manufacturers and other stakeholders regarding some recent tax changes. You'll recall that in the twilight of the last administration, there were certain regulations and executive orders that were signed in relation to tax imposition on certain categories of goods and services and all related matters. However, in furtherance to the President Tinubu's avowed commitment to constantly dialogue with Nigerians and lend a listening ear to the yearnings of and aspirations of our people, we are here this morning to let you have an insight into the recent executive orders that the President has signed. Now, upon taking over the reins of government, the President promised to run a government that will not make life difficult for Nigerians or asphyxiate or stifle corporate entities in spite of the challenges the federal government. In spite of these challenges, this federal government is irrevocably committed to this pledge. And you all recall that prior to the advent of this government, certain tax changes were introduced in the dying days of the last administration via the Customs Excise Tariff Variation Amendment Order 2023, referred to as the order, published on the 8th of May, year 2023, and the Finance Act 2023, which was signed into law on the 28th of May. That was a day before the inauguration of the new government. Among others, the order introduced new excise duties on single-use plastics, that's SUPs, higher excise duties on some locally manufactured products, including alcoholic beverages and tobacco products, and green tax by way of import tax adjustment on certain categories of imported vehicles. Now, the category of imported vehicles specifically refers to vehicles of 2,000 cc and above. That's the capacity, the engine capacity of 2,000 and above. The Tinubu administration has since noticed that some of the tax policies are being implemented retroactively with their commencement dates, in some instances predating the official publication of the relevant legal instruments backing the policies. This lacuna has created some challenges of execution or implementation. Indeed, the intentions behind upward adjustments of some of these taxes are quite noble. They were designed to raise revenue as well as address environmental and health issues of concern. However, they have generated some significant challenges for and elicited serious complaints amongst key stakeholders as well as in the business community. Let's mention some of the problems we have identified with the aforementioned tax changes. A document known as the 2017 National Tax Policy, approved by the Federal Executive Council of the last government, prescribes a minimum of 90 days notice from government to taxpayers before any tax changes can take effect. That is the regulation. This global practice is done with a view to giving taxpayers and businesses reasonable time to adjust to the new tax regime. However, both the Finance Act 2023 and the Customs Excise Tariff Order 2023 did not give the required minimum notice period, thus putting businesses in violation of the new tax regime even before the changes were gazetted. As a result of this, many of the affected businesses are already contending with the rising costs, falling margins, and capacity underutilization due to various microeconomic headwinds, as well as the impact of the Naira redesign policy. Gentlemen of the press, you will recall that excise tax increases on tobacco products and alcoholic beverages from 2022 to 2024, which had already been approved, are also being implemented. But a further escalation of the approved rates of the current administration presents an image of policy inconsistency and creates an atmosphere of uncertainty for businesses operating in Nigeria. The excise tax of 5% on telecommunication services has generated heated controversy. You all wrote about it. There is also a lack of clarity regarding the status of this tax, just as players in the sector also complain about the imposition of multiple taxes on their operations. We have also seen that the green taxes, including the single-use plastics tax, that's the SUP, and the import adjustment levy on certain categories of vehicles require more consultation and a holistic approach to the country's net zero plan in a manner that does not impact the economy negatively. In his inaugural speech, His Excellency President Bola Tinubu promised to address business-unfriendly fiscal policy measures and multiplicity of taxes. Consequently, President Bola Tinubu, in fidelity to the pledge to put Nigerians at the center of government policies, has signed the following executive orders. Executive Order 1, the Finance Act, Effective Date Variation Order 2023, has now deferred the commencement date of the changes contained in the Act from May 28, 2023 to September 1, 2023. This is to ensure adherence to the 90 days minimum advance notice for tax changes as contained in the 2017 National Tax Policy. Executive Order 2, the Customs Excise Tariff Variation Amendment Order 2023. This has also shifted the commencement date of the tax changes from March 27, 2023 to August 1, 2023, and also in line with the National Tax Policy. Order 3, the President has given an order suspending the 5% tax on telecommunication services as well as the excise duties escalation on locally manufactured goods. 4, further to his commitment to creating a business-friendly environment, the President has ordered the suspension of the newly introduced green tax by way of excise tax on single-use plastics, including plastic containers and bottles. In addition, the President has ordered the suspension of import tax adjustment levy on certain categories of vehicles. Like I said earlier on, any vehicle of 2,000 capacity, engine capacity and above, which the tax was imposed upon, has now been suspended. So it means that for the meantime, in the interim, the tax imposed on any vehicle of 2,000 cc and above is now suspended. As a listening leader, the President issued these orders to ameliorate the negative impacts of the tax adjustments on businesses and chokehold on households across affected sectors. His Excellency will not exacerbate or exaggerate the plight of Nigerians. In closing, the President wishes to reiterate his commitment to reviewing complaints about multiple taxation and anti-business inhibitions. The federal government sees business owners, local and foreign investors as critical engines in its focus on achieving higher GDP growth, an appreciable reduction in unemployment rate through job creation. The government will therefore continue to give requisite stimulus by way of friendly policies to allow businesses to flourish in the country. President Bola Tinubu wishes to assure Nigerians, by whose sacred mandate is in office, that there will not be further tax raise without robust and wide consultations undertaken within the context of a coherent fiscal policy framework. Thank you, gentlemen. So we are ready to take questions. I have with me on the table.
President, as much as we are environmental friendly, if we've not provided the alternative, it would be inhuman to tax the only option that we have. And that is what we say, that we suspend it. So pending the time we have alternative for the other use of all these plastics. So it is the view of Mr. President that it should not be a good representation that you've not provided the alternative and then we start from imposing the taxes. And then it's wisdom. That is why we have to suspend this for now.
Thank you, Mr. Zach. As a corollary to that, you all recall that at an interactive engagement a while ago, the president, on climate change issues, the president did use an analogy to explain the issue. Yes, he is for climate change, by all means. This government is for climate change. However, we must contextualize the imperative of climate change vis-a-vis our own peculiarities. This is Africa. Have we ever analyzed how much of our contribution to global warming, to now impose on us the onerous responsibility of reducing global warming through climate change dynamics? And what does all this mean? The developed society is telling us that we must reduce global warming, there must be climate change activities and stuff like that, and mechanisms must be put in place, either through our industries, reduce carbon emission and stuff like that. However, when you look at the component of pollution, global pollution, those developed societies are the ones contributing about 97% to global pollution. And Africa contributes only 3% to global pollution. And you are now saying we should assume hook, line, and sinker the rhetoric of reducing global pollution by imposing on ourselves very strenuous, putting our necks in a straitjacket, when we do not contribute so significantly to that problem. So, as we are creations of human beings, they say are creations of emotions, not of logic. But some of us are creations of logic. So, logically, a logical deduction of the issue is that those who contribute 97% to global pollution should also make 97% contribution to its reduction. So that is the argument of Mr. President, that you cannot say, for instance, we use our grandmothers and grandfathers use firewood to cook in their villages, in their hamlets. The president asked, how would he go and ask the average grandmother in the village to stop using firewood to cook when we haven't even got the gas spread or distribution or other technical methods of cooking spread all over the country? Are we now going to stop our people from cooking simply because we want to reduce global warming? That is the kernel of the issue. That's why now, for now here, plastics, we use plastics for sundry things, water and all of that. But if you look at the global consumption or usage of plastic, our own contribution is still so infinitesimal as to impose on ourselves that harrowing tax, which also contributes to inflation, rising cost of goods and services with this multiplicity of effects and job creation. Now, if a child is still crawling, you don't begin to put the child on a racetrack. You have to allow the child to crawl and start walking and start running before you can put him on a racetrack. Those guys in the developed societies are already on a racetrack. in terms of technological development, and in terms of the pollution of the global environment. We cannot share, we do not share the resources and the global money, the quantum of money available in the global financial system. We don't share them equally. And you want us to share the problems equally. It's not logical.
So are we now suspending what the condition we have tried concerning climate change?
No, you didn't. I said our contribution to global pollution should be commensurate with our own contribution to its reduction. That's the logic. We are not suspending that, but you don't expect us to carry the can when we make very, very negligible contribution to the global problem of climate change. Let those who carry the global, yes, let them contribute more. We contribute our own quota of 3%. Thank you. Yes,
part of the message, most especially the last paragraph, we put it there that we are putting a holistic plan in place to review all these taxes in line with Mr. President's commitment and promise. So that when we suspend, after our resolution, discussion, then we come up with a robust plan and how the fiscal framework that will be in line with Mr. President's economic plan.
Okay, so let me also add, as Zach said, the President said in his inaugural speech that we will be reviewing multiplicity of taxes. And now if you're adding new tax, what does that mean? You're actually adding to already existing multiple taxes. So the best thing to do is to stop adding any new taxes, review what we already have, simplify them, and then identify how you want to tax. And again, we're also very mindful of the impact of this multiplicity of taxes on Nigerians, on especially the consumers of these products. Because the manufacturers and the telcos, the minute you put on any tax, they actually pass through those taxes to the consumers. So your core charges begin to go up, and the prices that you're paying for even locally manufactured goods begin to go up. So the President and this administration is very sensitive to the plight of the Nigerians, and like he's already promised, we will ensure that the suffering is reduced and also ensure that businesses operate in a more friendly environment where we manage taxes in a way that it is also very business friendly. In addition to, of course, we are here looking for increased revenue, but it should not be at the expense of the average Nigerians. That's basically the reason for the suspension of the taxes. Thank you.
As you rightly said, that there is plan or possibly proposal for road taxes that we took what? Petroleum tax. So if you look at the current price template, that has already been included. So there is nothing, this suspension has nothing to do on that. So in the pricing structure that you have for the PMS today, all those have been included. There's no new taxes that we are bringing in there. So, and then like my colleagues have said, one of the key focus of this administration is to harmonize our taxes, the way we collect it. Mr. President actually wants to simplify and make it friendly to business, the way we operate taxes in Nigeria. And as we know that when you talk about the revenue management, it's not only in tax collection. The starting point is our economic policy, because our aim is not to tax poverty. Our aim is not to tax production. Our aim is to increase our productive activity, capacity to produce. Then we can tax our consumption. And that is the direction of our economic planning. And then we want to increase the trust that we have in government. And if you observe what has happened in the last few days, the last few months that we've been here, we've kept to our word. Part of what we are doing today, just to increase this trust, that we are here to do what is the best for the country. And lastly, is that we have robust plan to improve our collection management, the compliance management, because that is what is needed. So we are not going to impose new taxes. It's the one that we have that we improve the collection, the management, and the efficient use of those resources. And that is the pledge and the promise of Mr. President, which we are here to make sure it comes to reality.
question. Ultimately, as you know, there's a consumer protection agency, and as we effect this suspension, we believe that any cost that has been passed over to the consumers will also be suspended, and this will be enforced through the consumer protection agencies of the government. We do know that ultimately, as all my colleagues have said, the ultimate gain is to alleviate the plight of Nigerians, and we will ensure that this is done through the appropriate agencies of government. Thank you.
Regulators, for the telcos, the NCC, and for the manufacturers through their different manufacturing association and their regulators. So we are very, very aware of the inflationary effect this is causing, and for us is a major policy trust that we have to manage and regulate price. If we have to, maybe also introduce price controls where necessary. And that's going to your question, because basically you're asking, is there going to be a price control to manage these costs so that the consumers don't inevitably carry on costs that no one is helping to protect them? So yes, we're already working on those and we're already engaging with the regulators. Thank you.